Hello, and welcome to the Bad Humans look at Restoration Druid. In this video, I'm going to be going through all of the passes and abilities Restoration Druid has, talking through all of their talents, looking at what the options each row are, synergies, usefulness, maybe obviously for healing, tank versus raid healing talents. After that, I'm going to show you a little bit of gameplay here in the training grounds, kind of show how healing of a 5-man group might go, what the toolkit really works for the rest of Druid. I'll then talk a little bit about stats, how the stats are going to be useful for different kind of spells or play styles. Again, talking about that. No sense, of course, of stat weights. That would, of course, come way later. And then wrapping up my overall thoughts and maybe hopes for the spec going forward in BfA. So let's start where we always do with our passives here. So you have Ysera's Gift, so it heals you for 3% every 5 seconds, and if you're at full health, it will heal a injured party or raid member instead. So very nice thing for a healer to have. Omen of Clarity, your healing over time from Life Bloom has a chance to cause a clear casting state, making your next regrowth cost no mana. So again, very small chance on the hot tick of Life Bloom to give yourself a free regrowth. The mastery here is same as before. Healing is increased by a certain percent for each of your hots on the target. So as far as hots are concerned, you of course have Life Bloom, you have Rejuvenation. Again, if you take Germination, you'll have 2 of those. You could have Regrowth, you could have Wild Growth. I believe you can have Effervescence actually counts as well with certain talents, and you also have Tranquility because it does actually count as a hot as well. So you can have a lot of hots going at the same time if you want. So again, you can kind of stack all those up there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, get Wild Growth 5, put Effervescence underneath me 6, and then 7. So yeah, you can see all the lovely healing that can do. All right, so Flight Form, of course, is still there. I'm taking the Balance Affinity, so that's why this is showing up. Aquatic Form, Wild Growth heals 6 injured allies within 30 yards of your target for a certain amount over 7 seconds, and this healing starts high and then declines over the duration. You get some big ticks early on, and then it ticks off as time goes off. Ursol's Vortex. So it conjures here we go, put it there, a vortex of wind for 10 seconds at the destination, reducing the movement speed of all enemies within 8 yards by 50%. The first time the enemy tries to leave that, the winds will pull the enemy back to its center. So again, you can kind of use it to kind of keep targets in a area for AoE. Quite nice. Travel Form, of course, Tranquility, as I just showed. Now, 3-minute cooldown. Now, there's a talent that reduces it down to 2 minutes, which is actually, I think, far more competitive this expansion than last. But if you didn't notice, it is a channel. So you can no longer run around and trank at the same time. You do have to be standing still. It's a pretty decent heal. And again, it also heals in a stacking sense as well. So right, each heal heals the target for another additional amount over 8 seconds that stacks up as it heals. So again, it kind of builds as time goes on. Again, if you're not in a raid, the healing is doubled for 5-man content. Teleport Moonglaive, still here. Swift Mend is your instant cast, 25-second cooldown, instant heal for 3369. So again, very strong single target heal, but again, long cooldown on that. Now again, like I said, I'm taking the Balance Affinity, so that's why these spells are there. Soothe, again, Resto, Balance, and Pharaoh are the only specs that have Soothe in their toolkit. BM Hunter can get exotic pets, I believe, that have the same effect, but as far as actual in spec, only those 3 do. So if there's any fights or Mythic Plus that you can use a Soothing on, it's good you have it. Again, there's a Cat Form. Revive, of course, is your res. Revelation, again, is your mass res. Renewal is a talent, we'll talk about that later. Rejuve heals a target for about 2,000. Again, that's going to be dependent on your gear. Over 15 seconds, costs a decent amount of mana. Regrowth, a little bit more expensive, heals a friendly target for 1925. Again, that's all scaling. And then another amount over 12 seconds, and it is usable in Mugen form. That's not going to be, of course, important for Resto. Rebirth is your battle res. So again, the battle res have all been a little bit nerfed. Warlock has the long cast, of course, on Soulstone. This has a 1.6 second cast, and then the Death Knight one costs 30 runic power. So all of the battle reses have some degree of nerf compared to what they were like in Legion. Still has the same kind of thing as far as one rebirth every so often, or one battle res every so often. Nature's Cure is your ability to remove magic, curse, and poison effects. Again, Moonfire is something you would have normally baseline even without any aura. So again, that's there as well, just a little dot to kind of do damage. Mass Entanglement, Mangle, again, it must be in bear form. Lunar Strike, again, is part of that Moonkid form that I talked about. Life Bloom, so this, again, heals a target for a pretty good amount over 15 seconds, and if it expires or is dispelled, you get an instant heal for about half of whatever the original amount was. Now, you only can have one at a time, and there's some interesting synergy with talents behind that. Ironbark is a great tank cooldown, 20-second reduction of all damage, 12 seconds on a 1-minute cooldown. This again just kind of like baseline. There's no talents affecting that. So that's very strong for a pretty decent 20% damage. Again, it's not the strongest, but again, for that percent, 1-minute cooldown is pretty decent. Still have Innervate. I'm okay with Resto Druids having Innervate because they're just going to use it on themselves anyway. They should probably just say infuse yourself because we all know that they're not going to be sharing it with anybody. And it does allow them to cast spells without spending mana for 12 seconds. This is needed. Resto Druid is definitely a mana-sucking class. So they're definitely going to want this, especially in raid content. And 5 mana is not as bad because again, you can stop and drink and such, and you only have 5 targets. But when you're trying to spread a lot of hots out on a lot of targets, they can get pretty costly pretty quick. This is a talent. We'll talk about that later. Hibernate, again, put a target to sleep for 30 seconds. Growl's part of bear form. Entangling Roots, again, roots the target in place. Effervescence, this again is a reticle. Put it down, and then you get some healing coming up. Again, it heals for health, 300 allies within 10 yards every 1.6 seconds for 30 seconds. Dash activates cat form and increases movement speed by 60% while in cat form for 10 seconds. So again, quite nice. Cat form, of course, you can of course ship into bear form, of course, as well. And then Bark Skin is a personal, so your skin becomes as tough as bark, reducing all damage you take by 20% and preventing damage from delaying your spell casts. Also a 1-minute cooldown here. So again, a very nice little 1-minute personal there for the Resto Druid as well. So that's your base toolkit. Still have all your hots. Still have all of your kind of utility here. Let's dive into the talents. 15 row. Some good talents here. We have Abundance. I really do like this talent. I think that for a lot of what the Resto Druid is probably going to be doing in BfA, this would be a very much go-to talent. For each rejuve you have active, regrowth cost is reduced by 6%. This also counts any germination, which I'll get to later. So again, you can have a lot of these out, and I haven't found a cap. I honestly think that the cap is just how many you can get out at a time, because again of the duration of rejuve. So basically, it's how many rejuves can you get out in 15 seconds is basically going to be your answer here. And so again, its cost is reduced and critical effect chance is increased. So you have a lot of those out. You get a very nice, cheap, and again effective because you're going to get a crit on it. Regrowth, which can be quite nice. I like it a lot in 5-man content. You'll see this here where you have a lot of rejuves out on your raid, but you're still being able to channel in pretty decent healing to your tank. So that again I think is very, very useful for that. Prosperity, so Swiftman now has 2 charges and its cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. So this is good if you just need, some single target bigger healing. So again, its recharge is reduced to 22 seconds instead of 25, and you do get 2 charges on it. The only thing I would have to say about this is I don't think it plays into Resto's wheelhouse. Can Resto tank heal? Sure. All healers can tank heal. Are they efficient? Are they effective at it? Are they better than others? No. And so to play to your strength, I don't know if this is going to have much value. Now, there are some talents like Soul of the Forest that will have some type of synergy off of this, but even with that, I'm not too keen on the value of this talent. I'm sure there's a place for it. But again, for what I believe Resto Druid is going to be doing, which is basically as a raid healer, I don't see the value in this. Maybe Mythic Plus, but again, even Abundance I think is better at Mythic Plus healing than Prosperity. Scenario Ward's definitely another interesting option here. 30-second cooldown, protects a friendly target for 30 seconds. Any damage taken will consume the ward and heal a target for blank over 8 seconds. So on a tank, it's effectively a really cheap, really strong hot. every 30 seconds. So again, all three of these have the ability to be effective in tank healing. You also can, of course, put on anybody else. Now, again, on somebody else, it might actually last a little bit longer. So, for example, if you're trying to protect somebody because they're soaking something or because they're about to take damage or something like that, and you're worrying about like a one-shot, Scenario Ward might be useful. More than likely, though, you're going to be putting on a tank. And in that case, it just becomes a very strong, every 30-second kind of tank heal that's really effective as far as mana cost, right? It's very cheap on the mana cost scale for the amount of healing you get out of it. 30, Tiger Dash replaces Dash, so it activates Cat form and increases movement speed. So if you need movement speed, this is very, very powerful. Now, Renewal, I think a lot of healers, or specifically Resto healers, are going to like because it heals you. And we all know that anything that's going to show up on the heal meter is something you might want to take. So having a 1.5 minute cooldown to heal you for 30% of your maximum health, and again, at 120, we're going to have 100,000 to maybe 120, 30,000, depending on our gear level health. So again, a pretty big chunk of healing from this every 1.5. Good extra survival as well. Now, Wild Charge is kind of interesting. It's based upon your form. So in a case like Resto, where you're going to oftentimes be not shape-shifted, you can simply use it to target a friendly ally, and you will literally jump to them. So I think there's actually a lot of interesting cases of raid fights where this could be quite useful, where you want to get somewhere very quickly. You're trying to like get to a tank or get to somebody else down the line, and you can use it to kind of be standing still doing your healing, and then use this to jump to them. And again, I believe it again does have that 30-yard range there on that. So bear form, if you're in bear form, you give it a charge with an immobilize. If you're in cat form, you leap behind the enemy. Moonkin form, it basically allows you to kind of bound backwards or kind of do like a disengage. In travel form, you leap forward. In aquatic form, you increase your swim speed. So again, a lot of interesting places where this could be useful. In Resto, when you're in that non-shapeshift, that fly on ally is actually kind of an interesting. It's kind of like a Mercy in Overwatch type of effect, which is kind of interesting. 45 row, again, you have your affinities. I like balance for the range. Again, I'm honestly not going to say what one you should pick. They all have benefits. Movement speed can always be important. Taking less damage, again, also important. The ability to go into bear form for survivability is going to be nice. But if you want to do DPS, you're probably better off going into Feral. For, again, raiding, where you're not as worried about that. The extra range on all your spells is quite nice to get that raid healing. So, again, Mythic Plus, you're probably going to take Feral or Guardian. Raid, you might take Balance Affinity. But, yeah, again, it's your choice what you want to take, basically. 60 row is all utility. So again, you have mass entanglement, which again is a mass entanglement. You root all the targets within 15 yards in place. Typhoon, blast them back, 30-second cooldown. Mighty Bash, again, is a 5-second stun. That's a long stun in BfA. Okay, 50-second cooldown might seem long, but a 5-second stun is pretty long. So again, that can be quite useful. 75 row. All right. So this is a pretty powerful row. You have Soul of the Forest, which again, when you cast Swiftmend, you gain Soul of the Forest, increasing the healing of your next regrowth or rejuve by 200%, or the healing of your next wild growth by 75%. Now, that is one that would, of course, synergize with Prosperity, because you're going to be getting more Swiftmends off because of the lower cooldown and extra charges. So that would allow you to get more procs of Soul of the Forest to get extra healing out. The problem is that seems to be great for spot healing. Right? I Swiftmend the target, I put a regrowth or rejuve on them. The increase to wild growth is still nice, so you can still Swiftmend and then get an AoE heal out. But there's other talents in this row that would do that role better, right? That would help you in that AoE healing row. So this is clearly meant for spot healing, tank healing type of a encounter. And again, I just don't think that's what you're going to be doing. Even in Mythic Plus, where you're more worried about spot healing, I think there are better options than the Prosperity Soul of the Forest. Again, I can always be wrong, but that's just my thoughts from my testing so far. Cultivation, when Rejuve heals a target below 60% health, it applies Cultivation to the target, healing them for an amount over 6 seconds. Now, the amount, in my opinion, is a bit low. Again, it will, of course, scale as we level up, but again, I do think that this talent could be buffed a little bit. I like the idea, though. One of the things that, again, I think are very important, and other, again, healers out there have talked about this, is the need for catch-up mechanics as a healer. Early on in expansions, your heals are weaker, and the number of GCDs it takes to top somebody off is going to be greater, right? At the end of Legion, you can get lucky with certain specs and have 2-3 GCDs to top off even tanks. You know, it could be 1.5 to 2 GCDs to top off a DPS. It's going to be like 5 or 6 GCDs to be topping off tanks, and again, you know, 3 to 4 to be topping off any kind of, you know, DPS here. So the ability to have healing when you need it, when the target is lower, is always very nice. So again, this having a pretty big window, below 60% health is a pretty big window there. To be able to get that extra healing, to not have to spend more GCDs and more mana, has value. I just think that the extra healing could use a little bit of a bump. Now, it should be noted that cultivation counts as a hot. So it counts into your mastery. So again, for that then means now maybe up to 8 different hots on the target. So you can start to see how your mastery can definitely be affecting all of these things in interesting ways. The last one is Incarnation Tree of Life. I like this a lot. It basically becomes another kind of like, not raid cooldown, but it's very much like the Holy Paladin's like wings, where it empowers you and you become a super strong healer without even like using Trank or anything. So you shapeshift into Tree of Life form, which again does give you the tree form, and it increases your armor by 120%, all healing done by 15%. It also changes the functionality of Rejuve, Wild Growth, Regrowth, and Tanking Roots. So again, we can look on the tooltip and you'll see the enhanced portion. So for Rejuve, its healing is increased by 50% and its mana cost is reduced by 30%. So you can get a lot of these Rejuves out. Again, it does match up with Germination as well for that extra Rejuve on a target. That's quite nice. Regrowth becomes instant cast. So again, now instead of a 1.2 second cast, it's instant cast. Same mana cost though. While growth affects an additional 2 targets, so it goes up from 6 injured allies to 8 injured allies. So again, more mana efficiency in that regard because the number of targets you're healing is going up. And Entangling Roots becomes instant cast as well. So again, I really like this. It's a last 30 seconds, so it's a pretty decent amount of time. It might even last too long, so it's interesting. So this somewhat reminds me of Apotheosis from Holy Priest, and it was the same before. It was a 3-minute cooldown, last 30 seconds, and the problem there was just you end up wasting a lot of it. I still feel like you waste a decent amount of it here as well. In a raid environment, maybe not, but I would think that a similar change of 2-minute, 20-second would actually make it more valuable. That being said, for the competition that it has, I think it's still going to be competitive. Like I said, I just don't think Soul of the Forest is going to have the value people want. Again, the increase to wild growth is nice, but again, we're talking about 1 extra improved wild growth or 1 improved regrowth or rejuve every either 25 seconds with the base Swift Mend or every 22 seconds again, with the 1 extra charge with Prosperity. So again, you're not improving that many spells. So I just think that, again, it's clearly meant for that Swift Mend follow-up, more than likely a Swift Mend regrowth follow-up, that to kind of get a lot of healing on a target really quickly. You're just not a spot healer, right? Druids can, but they're not that get someone up from death quickly, hence the hots. So again, either something like Cultivation or Incarn, I think, will be the best choice. In our 90 row, we have Inner Peace, which reduces the cooldown of Shrink by a minute. So here's your 2-minute Shrink as a talent. Now before, if I remember correctly, it did compete with something like Germination, and that's why it wasn't that good. Germination's now on the same row as Flourish, which we'll talk about in a second. Stonebark reduces the cooldown of Ironbark by 15 seconds and increases the healing from your heal over time effects by 20%. So again, you can start to see how you could end up with some kind of like tank healing build with like idea like Prosperity, Soul of the Forest, Stonebark, right? All leading you towards that kind of single target. And then again, either Photosynthesis or Germination could be okay for single target healing. So something like this would be what you'd be looking at for the single target heal. Again, I don't think that's ideally the best route to go as a druid. The last talent here is Spring Blossoms. So each target healed by Effervescence is healed for an additional amount over 6 seconds. So the question here is, do you want more Tranks, right? So again, do you want a 2-minute Trank instead of a 3-minute Trank? So again, you get more tranks over the period of time. Let's just take a 6-minute fight, for example. That'll allow you to get 3 out instead of 2, technically speaking. Or Spring Blossoms, which again makes every effervescence stronger. Right, you get that extra healing amount on there as well. So that's going to be the kind of math question. This, of course, can be used all the time. So if there's a fight where you're getting a lot of good value out of this, now again, it is kind of expensive. So again, it's one of those things where for the healing it does, you better have people be standing on it for 30 seconds, right? Like you better have people not moving for a while here. If so, you're going to lose value. Spring Blossom can obviously help. If there's a fight where everyone's just running around, everyone's spread out, Tranquility is obviously going to be great for that. So having Trank up more often is going to work. So I do think we're going to see far more Druids taking and having a 2-minute Trank, which again I think is quite nice. And again, if you need that single target, Ironbark is great. It becomes 45-second cooldown, and it increases the hots you have on them by 20%. Not to mention all of the mastery they're benefiting from having multiple hots on them. 100 row. So photosynthesis, I think, actually is a very interesting talent. It's one of those things where when you have Germination and Flourish, you're kind of like, these are both amazing talents. Like, why would anyone ever take this? I think this is actually something that's kind of somewhat interesting, at least. It still might not be taken, but at least it's something that isn't just complete garbage. So while your Life Bloom is on yourself, all of your hots heal faster. So I'll show you what, again, that will kind of look like here. So if I put Rejuve on me, you'll see, again, every 2.4 seconds I heal for 272. I put Life Bloom on me, it now heals for more every 2.1. Okay, so again, because it heals faster, right, and again, I also got the mastery bonus, of course, as well, right, but you can see I now get every 2.1 seconds you're getting ticks instead of without the Life Bloom. I can wait till it falls off. It was again at 2.4. So, and that's on all targets. So you're getting faster ticks on all of your hots out there. So if you have a lot of hots out, put a Life Bloom on yourself, you're basically empowering all of your other ones. If you put Life Bloom on a target, your hots on them have a chance to cause it to bloom. So again, the blue on Life Bloom, again, is this extra half of the hot amount, and it can happen more than once, by the way. So for example, if you're tank healing, which again is why I do think that photosynthesis would be probably the go-to here. Germination is going to have value for other content, but if you're truly trying to be a tank healer, if you don't care about healing anything other than one target, photosynthesis, Stonebark, Soul of the Forest, Prosperity would probably be your go-to. Again, you can argue for Cenarian Ward, you could argue for Incarn even for that, you can argue for a lot of other talents, but I think that's what Blizzard is trying to aim you towards. You would have, again, hypothetically, you would have a Rejuve, a Regrowth, you would have Life Bloom, of course, on the target, maybe, again, a Wild Growth ticking on them as well, and you'd have all those things maybe on them, and then each of those ticks gives a 5% chance to get a Bloom, so you're also kind of basically getting some Bloom healing on them as well. So Germination is what it was before, so you can apply Rejuve twice to the same target, so you can have 2 Rejuves on the same target. This, again, is very, very valuable. It's very good AoE healing, of course, but you can't take this and Flourish, which was the big thing last time. So the ability to have so many hots out with, double Rejuves on everything, Wild Growths going out there, and then Flourish, and have all those things keep ticking for another 8 seconds, and again, increasing the rate of your heal over time effects by 100%, that was just super strong. Now you have to kind of choose, right? So, for example, in Mythic Plus, you're not just healing one target. While a lot of the time you are single target healing because there's one person you're focusing on, and that tends to be the most efficient way, you still need to heal the targets. And so things like Abundance, things like Germination, I think things like Incarn or even Cultivation, I think do a better job in that setting than these talents that are focused on the single target, right? I still think that, again, even for Mythic Plus, Incarn is better, right? Even Germination is better with this, right? Because you'll be able to put out more hots on all the targets, and then again, with Germination and Abundance, like I mentioned, you can get 10, basic Rejuves out. That's then giving you 60% reduced costs and 60% increased crit chance on your regrowths. So you can see the kind of strong synergy you can have there in even small groups. And I'll show that, of course, when I start some endless runs here. Flourish, as I mentioned, again, it's clearly much more of a raid talent where you're having a lot of HOTS out on a bunch of targets. You can then extend them, which really is a very good efficiency, helps you reduce your mana costs. And again, Druid is pretty thirsty when it comes to their mana usage here. So let's take a look here at this. And yeah, this is a good talent set for this. So I'm going to basically always be keeping Life Plume on the tank here. I'm going to just automatically kind of give them those 2 stacks. Get a thing down there. Maybe get a regrowth out. And yeah, so I think that again, just like before, you get a really good ability to heal AoE, right? Your HOTS are very effective. They're very efficient. They last over time. They're not too costly on their own, but again, this idea of stacking them all up over time definitely has a bit of a cost to it. You have decent tools. Again, you have Iron Bark for that single target ability to reduce. You have Tranquility, but again, you can't move anymore. So the mobility of Druid has gone down. The survivability of Druid has gone down because they can't be... they basically have nerfed the survivability in the bear form when you're not actually a Guardian Druid. They've also nerfed Frenzy Regen as well when you're not a Guardian Druid. So again, you're not going to be as tanky as you once were when it comes to things like Mythic Plus. But again, that's okay because Druids were just very, very strong. They could handle a little bit of a nerf there. So you can start to see one of the kind of issues here with that. Without some of these talents, you can definitely feel a bit behind on some of these. So I'm going to actually Tree of Life it up now and just get through this. So having that kind of like oh shit button with something like Tree of Life is just very, very, very strong. And as you can see, I still have 10 seconds left on it. So like I said, 20-second duration would actually probably be better with a 2-minute cooldown, but I'm not going to, complain too much about that. Now, as you notice, the cooldown doesn't start till the 30 seconds ends, which again is kind of a bummer because you're not getting the duration while you have that. So again, get our HOT starting to stack here. And get that going. But you'll see, again, if I start to go put a bunch of regos out, you can see my abundance stacks over here go up. And you can see how, again, I have 7 stacks. That's 42% healing and damage there as well. All right, so let's wrap this up here. All right, so let's talk a bit now about stats. So crits, again, crits can be interesting. Again, you get that extra crit from abundance, but crit's going to always be somewhat helpful. Haste, of course, is going to be the key thing here. This is going to allow you to get your HOTS to tick faster, which is quite valuable. Mastering is going to be super strong. Getting those extra HOTS out on targets can be really helpful there. Versatility, probably not as much. Again, my gear is obviously not optimized, so not as much there. Overall thoughts. I think Resto's a very decent healer. I think they're going to fill the role of a raid healer very well. I think it's interesting how the talent choices can lead you to tank healing. I just don't think it's going to be very effective or efficient as a tank healer. I do think they're better off in the role as a raid healer. However, the utility is a little bit nerfed. Again, Tranquility not being able to move with it kind of hurts them there. That puts them in the same boat as like Holy Priest, but again, that kind of standstill hot. And again, it's just not as strong. They don't have as strong of a tools as that. Innervate's strong, but it's not a real raid tool. It's more of a personal tool. So we'll have to kind of see how that plays out. So if you have any likes, give me a like. If you have any dislikes, give me a dislike. If you want to see more videos like this, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Feel free to leave comments down below. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in my future videos.